Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Carla Williams Scott, Director of the Department of Neighborhoods, and on behalf of our mayor and my team, I would like to say thank you for coming out today, and thank you to our panelists. This is the first in our Lunch and Learn series, Learning to Heal the Hurt, and just with everything that's going on in our world and in our country, there's a lot of hurt going on, and there's a lot of hurt going on in our community. So I'm hoping that this will be informative, give us an opportunity to find out some transformative ways that we can heal hurt in our community. And so with that, I would like to again say thank you for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to our Commissioner Poirier to begin the moderation.
Again, my name is Allison Poe. I am the chair of the Issue and Education Committee, and I will be moderating today's Lunch and Learn series. First off, I'd like to say good morning to everybody. It is with much enthusiasm that I welcome everyone to our 2017 Lunch and Learn series, which is, as Carla said, Learning to Heal the Hurt. This topic came about as an effort to provide a public forum in which community hurt could be discussed openly while providing resources and opportunities for community engagement. We've gathered panelists and participants representative of many cross-sections in our community. The goal is to share experiences, opportunities, and efforts that exist while helping individuals that are hurting. With no further ado, let's begin our 2017 Lunch and Learn series, Learning to Heal the Hurt. And in doing so, I'd like to start by introducing, having our panelists, introduce themselves and tell you with whom they are representing. Mr. Hadden.
Okay, I'm Phil Hadden. I work with the Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Board here in Franklin County, and I'm the client rights advocate there, and I've been doing that work for approximately 10 years now, but I've been at the board for about 16 years. The main area of my job there is to mediate and problem solve with folks that might be having issues with their agencies and trying to help them get through those barriers and move forward with their treatment and their recovery. So that is the main focus of my job. I also work with a very strong consumer and family advocacy council there. And I have a bunch of resources regarding that group on the back table. We have their schedule back there, their mission and vision statement, and basically it's a self-run group of consumer and family members and folks from the community that want to better our system of care. So at the board, we utilize folks at all levels of our agency, whether it be in work groups and committees, system investments that we're trying to move forward to get input and feedback from folks on those types of issues. So I'm also involved with CIT training and moderate a consumer and family panel, crisis intervention training at the Columbus Police Training Academy, typically on a quarterly basis, which I think is also very good work and very much needed in our community and in all communities, actually. And I think that's the majority of stuff that I do at the board. I also work closely with Gabe here. He works with the Peer Center, and I work with a lot of the peer oriented services in our system of care. We have Recovery Works also, which is at the COVA building, and we have some actual schedules back there, and I'll let Gabe talk a little bit more about the schedules and some of the events that are going on at the Peer Center. But the Recovery Works has an event tomorrow evening actually in Hilliard called So Connected, and there's a flyer, kind of like a postcard type flyer back there. Thank you, Gabe, on the event, and it's from 4 to 7 tomorrow in Hilliard. And I consider that to be a community builder, stigma busting type of event, and also a way for folks to share their creativity, and kind of, I think, a venue to show one of the ways maybe that they've helped get through their hurt and advance their recovery through their creativity. There's going to be somebody performing there tomorrow evening, and this is going to be an ongoing type of a group that goes on with our Recovery Works program. So with that being said, I probably was too long-winded, and now turn that over to Gabe.
Thank you, Phil. Gabe?
Hello, my name is Gabe Howard, and I work for the Peer Center, which is a consumer-operated drop-in center. We have 2 locations, one on the east and one on the west, and they're affectionately known as Peer East and Peer West. I know, tough code to crack there. I am the director of development over there, and one of my jobs is to both do community relations things like this, raise funds for the Peer Center, and I also run the Certified Peer Supporter Grant from Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services, so that people who hold the title of peer supporter, there's something that it means. It's not just a title that we've bestowed on ourselves. Hey, I'm a peer supporter, the key word being certified. So for the state of Ohio, I'm the director of the Peer Supporter Program, so that when people hold that certification, they've worked for it, they've learned for it, they represent it well, and they can do really good works in the community, and that's all over the state of Ohio. So that's really what I do. And I have red hair. I mean, just
Thanks,
in
Gabe.
case anybody couldn't tell.
Good morning. My name is Linda Jaynes, and I'm a managing director with Alvis Incorporated, and I oversee the Amethyst program, and our target population is women with addiction issues or mental health problems or duly diagnosed, and we serve not only the women, but their children. Our secondary population that we've just recently started to serve is human trafficking victims. You may be familiar with Judge Herbert here in Franklin County and his catch court. We take referrals directly from Judge Herbert, so thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Good morning. My name is Marian Stuckey. I'm the Director of Neighborhood Social Work with Columbus Public Health and also leading up the Columbus Care Coalition, which is a coalition to help address community trauma. Just a little history on the Care Coalition. It formed in 2015 following a triple homicide that happened on the Hilltop. A group of us went door to door and engaged with residents directly. And from that effort, we knew that there was more that we should do as professionals and as community members to engage others in their times of hurt so we can encourage healing and connection with resources. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Donovan Gresham. I'm with Community Food Direction. Here at CND, we do several different things. We have outpatient treatment. We have our APS program, our gang intervention program. I oversee, as director of AOD prevention, our prevention in school, after school, and summer programming. We work with school-age kids, and, well, I'm going ahead of myself. So, all right. So I'll stop there.
Okay, you want it? All right. Well, and actually, that was Donovan. We are going to talk about target populations. Linda, you referred to your target population a little bit. If we could, and we can go down the line, or we can just do popcorn style. If we could talk a little bit about the target populations we serve, that would be super. Go ahead, Donovan.
We have different programs we do prevention. In school, currently we're in 20 different schools. We serve schools, Columbus City Schools and Reynoldsburg City Schools. We do violence prevention and mentoring in those schools. We do after-school programming on the east, south, and west side from ages 5 to 14. And then for our high school population, we have what's called our focus program. Our focus program is Futures Opportunities Created for Urban Students. We meet once a week as a leadership development and peer leadership program. And we actually do college visits and stuff like that. So we take kids out their environment and we take them on college tours. We expose them to speakers and stuff like that. So we do a lot of different stuff at CND.
Great, thank you. Mary?
So the Care Coalition seeks to serve all of Columbus as we hope to help influence the city becoming a trauma-informed city. And by that, I just mean that all systems are trauma-informed, asking the key question of what happened to someone instead of what's wrong with them. As trauma-informed agencies, we do that. But what does that look like in a community context? So we hope to really share that message throughout the city. But we've been very appreciative to get funding through City Council to pilot our work in the Hilltop and Linden. So that would be our target. But in terms of trauma affects everybody, it's a pervasive problem. So about 70% of us will have at least one traumatic event in our lives. So in terms of a target population, I couldn't say we have just one, but just sharing the message on trauma to all that will hear it.
Thank you. Linda?
Uh,
You actually already did, but if you'd like to expand, feel free.
Yeah, just to tell you a little bit about the overall organization of Alvis Incorporated, or Alvis 180. We actually have different lines of services, the largest being the community corrections arm, but we also have a developmental disability arm. And then the newest arm, which I'm part of, is recovery services, which we have the Recovery Choices facility that we're just getting ready to open up on Livingston Avenue, if anybody's been by that location. So fingers crossed, we should have that open for outpatient services in the next week and a half or so. Then, of course, Amethyst and the Catch Court program. And as all of you are familiar with, we're seeing so many women come through our doors with the addiction to opioids. And it's tough because not only do we see it affect the women, but also their children. So what we're really proud of is we not only provide intensive outpatient treatment services, but we also have 9 apartment buildings throughout Columbus where we allow the women to live, and not just live while they're in programming, but if they have custody of their children can live with them. We believe that you can't heal the parent or the mother or the adult without also healing the entire family.
Fantastic. Thank you. Gabe?
The Peer Center's target demographic is anybody over the age of 18 years old, so adults that identify with mental illness, addiction, or trauma. The real, what I call magic of our centers is that it's a drop-in center. So when you want help, when you don't want to be alone, when you want resources, when you need something, you don't have to call a mental health professional and make an appointment for, a week away for 3 o'clock. You can just drop in right then. We're open 365 days a year, and I always say that 365 days includes Christmas because that's the #1 question. Really, even Christmas? Yeah, it's 365 days a year. Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, all of them. And we're there for people when they need us. That's our big goal.
Great. Thank you. Sounds important.
Our target population involves a whole gamut of folks. We have about 35 agencies in our system of care, ranging from youth services to adult services, to behavioral health services, to alcohol and other drug services, to prevention services. So we cover a lot of areas, and we have a very large target population that we serve. I think we typically serve over 20,000 people within our community per year. So we also have a crisis agency called Net Care. There's 2 locations for Net Care, and that is our main crisis, focal crisis center, and they deal a lot with folks that are right in the midst of probably the most hurting times in their lives. So Net Care addresses trauma and very severe issues at times for folks that might even need to be hospitalized as a result of the hurt and the trauma that they're currently going through. So Net Care's open 365 days a year, also 24/7. So there's one on East Broad Street location at 741 East Broad Street, and there's another location at 199 South Central. So Net Care is our main agency to deal with crisis and trauma type events, and trying to help folks through their roughest periods of time.
Great. Thank you. So after defining our target populations, we can see that trauma, hurt, everything is kind of interwoven. So I thank you all for being here. Let's jump in, if we don't mind, and talk about some prevalent issues that are interfering with our ability to provide comprehensive services to individuals. If anybody would like to speak on that, that would be super. Anybody want to start? No? Linda?
I think for me, we are really in need of developing a relationship with a detox center. Unfortunately, if women walk through our doors and they're high on drugs or intoxicated in any way, we cannot assess them and we cannot go through the intake process. So I know that's a barrier for us and something that it really is key to healing the hurt, because to have these women have the courage and strength, even while they're high or under the influence, to walk through the doors and say, I need help, and how heartbreaking is it for us to have to turn them away. And honestly, 90% of the time, they don't ever come back to heal that hurt. So we hope to engage them at some point in the future, but that is a true barrier. There's detox centers, but I don't think there's often a connection enough with actual treatment providers where we can say, we're going to bring Mary down right now, let us know when she's detox, and then we'll pick her up and bring her into our program.
I think you just hit on a great issue as far as our system really needing, especially in any type of public system of care. I think you're going to be dealing with limited resources and access issues, and I think it's all more important that we all work together collaboratively and try to develop those relationships and connections and working together and having more of a seamless type system of care where everybody's kind of on the same page and working together. So I think that it's very important with limited resources that we build those collaborations and build those coalitions and get folks working together and trying to have that, in place, because we are at a point of limited resources, I think, right now.
I would like to piggyback. For us, the biggest issue is money, of course, and capacity to build. We just finished our summer day camp about 9 days ago. We had 170 kids come, but we had about 50 more who wanted to come. We were limited to, we had to turn folks away. We had to refer them to other programs, not because we didn't want it, because we didn't actually have the capacity to actually safely, hold all the youth. Our biggest thing in our kids is making sure they have something to do during the summer, during the key hours, and after school, and during the key hours. So the capacity that we have to serve is limited by money.
So I would just add the stigma associated with mental health. A lot of people are not comfortable going to seek services. I think having the common vocabulary to talk about your experience and trauma, and understanding that trauma is a root cause for many different issues, including substance abuse and homelessness. There's a variety of health concerns. There's a variety of issues that the trauma impacts. So I think having the vocabulary and then the resources to actually access care on the consumer level.
Thank you. Gabe?
I absolutely positively want to say money. Because, it all boils down to available resources. But if we put that aside for a moment, I would like to see we just don't do a lot with preventative. If I speak purely for the Peer Center, I would like us to have to go out of business because there's no traumatized or addicted or mentally ill people without resources. So we have a drop-in center that nobody needs to come to because everybody's at work. Everybody's living well. Everybody got resources they needed long before they hit their crisis point for the 5th time. And I don't really think that we're working on that in the way that we should be. And by we, I mean as a society. We have sort of little things that we do. Like, for example, Phil talked about the CIT program. The CIT program is crisis intervention training that police officers go through, because a lot of times people with mental illness and addiction problems run into the police before they run into medical care. That's just the way our society works. So let's take that as its base value, that people with mental illness, addiction, and trauma issues are going to have interactions with the police before they have interactions with medical care. So that seems like a training that should be mandated and required for all police officers to go through. It's not. It's voluntary. They don't have to do it if they don't want to. So I think society hears, oh, there's this great training that are helping police officers be prepared to do the best that they can for our people. But in actuality, lots and lots of police officers just aren't trained. So I don't know, I sort of see it like a sinking ship, that there's like a program that kind of shovels some of the water out, and that program gets a lot of attention because, hey, at least somebody's doing something. But in actuality, there's people standing all around that are like, we know how to fix the hole. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to fund that. And that's, so I'd really like to see more of that. I'd really like to see a big push to prevent these problems from happening in the first place. We have some seriously systemic problems in our society that I don't think that we have the resources to even touch. And I think that's gonna affect my children's children, if I had children, so I'm good. But your children's children, if you have children.
Would you mind speaking, Gabe, on the peer support certification and kind of that just getting started? Because you're probably more familiar than I am with that. Because I know that's another resource that I would feel like would be worthwhile, like exploding and really putting more resources into that than what are currently there. But we're just kind of getting started and get the ball rolling with the peer support certification process. Can you share anything on that, or?
The idea behind peer support is simple. It's somebody who has been there and done that, teaching somebody who hasn't been there and done that yet. And we see many examples of peer support in our society. By a show of hands, who's heard of Weight Watchers? All right. Who has ever been to a sales training? Sales training, networking event, volunteer event. We all learn from people who have lost weight, people who are good salespeople. Business classes are taught by business leaders. We always seek out people who have accomplished something so that we can learn from them. Our teachers in school learned how to teach, and they were once students. That's a very, very, very poor analogy for peer support, but kinda. So then we get to mental health and addiction, and somebody says, hey, somebody who has reached recovery, so somebody who was once an addict is now not an addict, can be utilized to guide people who are looking to find their way. And unfortunately, our society was like, well, now wait a minute. So you've got somebody with mental illness that's going to teach somebody with mental illness something, and all of a sudden the stigma that you alluded to, I have heard every example. It's like, whoa. So you're letting the inmates run the asylum? No. What we are simply stating is that somebody who knows the way should help other people find the way. It's not in replacement of anything. Peer supporters are not a replacement for psychologists. They're not a replacement for therapists. They're not a replacement for case managers. They're not a replacement for social workers. They are in addition to. Just because you get a screwdriver doesn't mean you need to throw out your hammer. But who's tried to hammer a screw? It doesn't work. I've tried it. Use the right tool and you get the right result. And that's the purpose of peer support. Now, when peer support came up, we did get a lot of pushback from the general society. Again, this idea of the inmates running the asylum. We can't let mentally ill people run around teaching each other stuff. That'll be bad. They'll get together and, I don't know, something bad will happen. This seemed to be the general consensus. So, okay, that's a fair statement. We don't let dentists pull teeth without getting some sort of dental degree. I mean, there's licensure, et cetera. So we wanted to provide the same thing in the peer support community. So in order to be a certified peer supporter, you have to do a variety of things, including passing a test and being certified by the state, and then continuing education credits. So that way, when somebody says, I'm a certified peer supporter, you know that they have done more than just woke up one morning and decided that they are going to provide peer support. Did I get it?
You
Got it.
Excellent.
sure did.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you very much. And I will throw in there, I am actually a certified peer recovery supporter, so he did explain that perfectly. We talked a little bit about prevention. And in prevention, we have to look at some strategies. So for prevention and strategies, what are we doing or looking at right now to help strengthen service delivery within our community?
I know what we do is we use our strongest resources, which is our parents. In schools, it's the teachers and the guidance counselors. So it's having that two-way open conversation. I know when I talk to a parent in our after-school program, I don't just talk to them when their kids are doing something bad. I tell them when they're doing something good also. And they do the same likewise. So that when they get a call from me, it's not, oh, Mr. Donovan's calling me, it gotta be something bad. They don't know because I try to keep them in the loop and they keep us in the loop. So that way we can actually be a resource for each other.
Great, thank you.
For us, it's the kind of the collaboration process, and as you talked about before, it's important to collaborate because resources are few. So we have many great partners around the table, including NetCare and longer-term providers. So that's been a really great strategy for us, as well as using a strategic doing process, which is a 30-day action-oriented plan to keep us dynamic and able to address needs as they arise. So that's been really helpful for us.
We've recently engaged The Ohio State University to do an evaluation of our program. And we want that evaluation not just so we can seek funding, as Gabe alluded to earlier, but we want to make sure that we're providing the most effective, best services. Certainly, recovery treatment, mental health treatment has been around a long time, but we don't often keep abreast of the cutting edge, the new research, the new techniques, and make sure that our staff is really up to snuff and experts at this. So we're hoping that The Ohio State University can look at our program top to bottom, identify the strengths and things that are really, really going well, but some things that we can do differently, so we can even get better outcomes for our mothers and our clients and the children that we serve.
Thank you.
One of the big initiatives at the Peer Center is to listen to the public. And the public right now, they're not saying the greatest things. And I think the defense mechanism is to ignore the public because they don't understand. And one of the things that the Peer Center has tried to do is say, okay, what you're saying is incorrect and you don't understand, so allow us to be part of the conversation and help you understand. And it's a slow process because, there's a lot of, there's just a lot of beliefs about mental illness and addiction that are, probably not going to go away overnight. But we want to be part of the community conversation. We want to be at events like this. We just want to be heard. And we're trying to do more and more to get our voice heard out in the community. Because a lot of times we find ourselves preaching to the choir, and the choir already agrees with us. So we're helping educate the choir to educate others, and hopefully we'll reach a watershed moment where more people understand than don't understand. And that will hopefully be sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, we have folks that have received services and family members of the folks that are receiving services incorporated in all levels at our board. We have folks on our board of trustees that have received services in our system of care, family members on our board of trustees. We have folks at the table with reviewing each agency that we provide funding to in our system of care has to provide us with an agency services plan to show kind of what they've done for the year, their expenses and so forth. And we have folks at that level also reviewing agency services plans, providing feedback and that kind of thing also. Folks are involved with system investments where we're looking to provide more funding kind of outside of our system of care in a new innovative way with maybe a new innovative program that we're looking to fund. So and then at our Consumer and Family Advocacy Council, folks, our mission and vision statement is at the back table there for that group. But it's kind of to keep us on mission. The CFAC group, the Consumer and Family Advocacy Council, is to kind of keep the Adam H board on mission and doing what we're supposed to be doing. So I think with those checks and balances and involving folks at all levels of review and feedback and communication, I think that goes a long way. And I think that's definitely helpful.
Great, thank you. In regards to interfering with ability to deliver service, Gabe, you had said something that caught my attention. You want to get the word out to the community. As an individual seeking services, can you talk a little bit about how you get the word out about your agency, or how do individuals become linked with your agencies?
In order to become linked with the Peer Center, all you really have to do is walk in the door.
Okay.
So it's really easy to come to the Peer Center. You don't need a referral. We're a drop-in center, and everything that we do is free. as far as getting the word out, yeah, it's a real challenge. I don't know about these agencies, but we don't have, TV money. We don't have newspaper money. We don't have, marketing departments, et cetera. So we survive largely on word of mouth. And that does make it difficult. I mean, there's a reason that McDonald's is a popular brand. It's $1 billion a month in ad buys. Do you guys have $1 billion? No. So the way that we get the word out is through that positive conversation. It's by doing stuff like this. It's about asking the people who come to spread the word. It's about doing the community events. It's about, Facebook and email. It really is a grassroots sort of guerrilla marketing effort of it's just very, very, very important that we talk about the agency. This does represent a little bit of a challenge because most people don't go back to their communities and say, hey, I went to a drop-in center for mental illness and addiction today. What for? No reason. So there is a stigma where they don't want to share that they're getting great services there because then they would have to tell their circle of friends that they're going there. So we try to normalize this. And one of the big things that we do, it gives me an opportunity to sort of plug Peer Dance a little bit. Peer Dance and Walk is a community event that's happening this Saturday. It's put on by the Peer Center. It is a fundraiser, but it's also free. But the idea behind that is saying to somebody, hey, I go to a drop-in center because I have mental illness or I'm an addict, et cetera. That's a really hard conversation to have. As somebody who lives with bipolar disorder, when I was first diagnosed, these were difficult conversations to have. To say, why do you do X? Because I have bipolar disorder. I mean, that's tough, especially when you're sick. But then there were all these community events that cropped up. And then all I had to do was invite somebody to an event. Hey, I want my mom to better understand what I'm going through, so what I'll do is invite her to this charity's Christmas party, or this charity's picnic in the park, or this charity's concert, or walk, or event. See, inviting somebody to an event is really, really easy. And then once I get them there, then they can start see what I see, which is that recovery is possible, people who are getting well, people who are talking about this openly and the world doesn't collapse. And that's why these community events are so important. It's difficult to get people through the doors of our agencies because our agencies seem scary from the outside because there's so much unknown. It's not that they're actually scary, it's just they're unknown and people are afraid of the unknown. So that's why I believe in doing stuff in the community so much, because their misconception is based on basically fear, and their fear is based on the fact that they don't understand it, and the reason they don't understand it is because they're not trying to learn, because they don't see value in it. So let's bring the value to them. Let's meet people where they are.
Well, and to piggyback on what Gabe's saying, as far as I know, one of the things that he mentions typically when we have the CIT training with law enforcement is you're seeing us at our worst when you're involved with us. This is an opportunity to see us at our best, at our point in recovery where we're doing very well. And you can see we're people just like you are. And it breaks that barrier, and it breaks that misconception, and it kind of takes a leap forward against stigma. I think when folks are able to be involved with events like this and CIT, because folks do, law enforcement, other folks get to see you at your best in your recovery process. So, just to piggyback on what you're saying, I think, I remember you saying that a lot with law enforcement. Hey, you get to see us at our best now, and I think that's very important, breaking through stigma and breaking through those misconceptions of what people have of folks.
Great, thank you. Anything to add, anyone?
I would just piggyback. There's a lot to be said about going into someone's natural environment and seeing what, experiencing life the way they live it. And that's been a big strategy of the CARE Coalition is going out and just being in the community, and we hope to do a lot more of that soon.
Great.
One of our most powerful tools is we have a very robust alumni group. Clients who graduated from our program and years later are still very successful. We also believe in hiring people who've been through our program, so we have 3 or 4 people who are actually successful Amethyst graduates. And you talk about a powerful tool not only for new clients, but to help educate our staff who haven't walked in those shoes before. And then our alumni group and our staff, they're just absolutely amazing at getting the word out as much as possible, whether it's a booth at the Ohio State Fair or a table at a church or speaking to the YWCA. We really get the word out there. Now, the flip side of that is the problem we're having now is we are completely and totally at capacity because the word is out there, but it just demonstrates that need that we have to expand so we can serve more women and more children.
Thank you. Thank you. What are agency/personal goals? Why are we here today? What do we hope to accomplish? We're talking about hurt. How can we impact some of the hurt in the community?
I think about actually just talking. A lot of times, one of our strategies when we work with kids is you get them talking. You'd be surprised about how many kids I work with who get saying good morning or saying hello when they walk in the room is a big deal. And getting them to open up, I mean, small things at first is basically chipping that ice away. And then they can understand that it's okay, because I personally grew up like that, where I was walking a room, I sat down, I didn't say good morning or whatever. It's about breaking through the barriers, and then they can learn to trust both ways. So a lot of times, even if you don't get a chance to talk about what's hurting them, they get a chance to actually feel like it's okay to be themselves or to be a kid. I mean, from my personal experience.
Thank you, Donovan.
I would say just learning to be with people, no matter what their issues are, and being in a place of non-judgment. I know as a professional myself, I'm always striving to just be present with people and just see them for who they are and what they've experienced, and just learning how I can be a benefit to them. How can I support them in their process of healing?
For me, it's about breaking the cycle of hurt. So we have these women coming to us from all different backgrounds or court referrals or victims of human trafficking, but they have children. So it is so important to focus equally as much on healing the hurt of their children. We also have many pregnant women coming through our doors, and we want to break the cycle that way by helping them get prenatal care and understanding what it is to be a mother and changing their patterns from the past. We also have an interesting pregnancy prevention program. So we want to help the women understand that they don't have to get pregnant if they don't want to get pregnant, or they don't have to have an accidental pregnancy. So we've seen some of our women really turn around and actually opt for voluntary long-term birth control because they didn't quite realize they could make that active choice not to get pregnant in the future.
Thank you.
For as much as we discuss talking in the community, the secondary part of that is we have to keep our promises. Our actions have to speak as loud as our words. So when we go out in the community and we have these great conversations, we have to then back that up. I said that the Peer Center is open 365 days a year, and you're relying on that. So we better make sure we stay open 365 days a year and things like that. It's really important not to overpromise or consistency really, really matters. We have to keep our words. Our actions need to be just as loud as our words. Well,
My own personal way of working with folks that come in the door to see me, a lot of times I think I'm working with folks that are dealing with some kind of hurtful situation or disappointment with their agency, which sometimes results in anger, and which is understandable, and allowing folks to vent, allowing folks to be heard and feel like they're being heard, and being compassionate and trying to address their needs the best that I can, I think helps folks feel like they have somebody in their corner, somebody that will advocate for them. And I also try to give them the hope and the confidence before they leave that they can come back and see me if there's any further issues, that they can also try to address those issues on their own and feel empowered enough to advocate for themselves. So I also try to kind of give them the hope that, hey, maybe if you wanted to try to address it with so-and-so at the agency, and you feel comfortable enough doing that, let me know how that goes. So I try to help them feel a little bit more empowered and help them hopefully have the confidence to address those things in the future.
Great. Thank you. Marion, you had talked a little bit about coming from a place of non-judgment. Can we expand upon that a little bit, not placing judgment on individuals and kind of how you use that in practice or in everyday life?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Coming from a non-judgmental place just means kind of turning a blind eye to things that could be perceived as things you would judge. So just if someone's homeless or if someone is coming from a different background or culture than yours that you don't know about. I think it's just kind of coming with a clean slate and letting the person inform you about what works for them and not making judgments or flash decisions about what's best for a person, and just really truly letting them guide you and guide the treatment or guide whatever you're doing with that person. It should be based on what works for them and what's best for them, not based on what you think is best.
Great. Anybody have anything to add?
I tell you, that is really key. We've learned that the client and who we're serving has to be part of their plan. We can't do it for them, and we can't think that we know what they need. We have to facilitate that process and help them find that within themselves, but they absolutely have to be a part of that. We have to listen to them, we have to hear them, and make them an active participant in their healing.
Thank you.
The big golden rule of being a certified peer supporter is it's about them, not about you. So your beliefs and values, et cetera, really need to be checked at the door because you're helping that person. It's about their needs, their desires, their wants, their goals. It's not about your own, which can be hard to do. I mean, but it's, you're not trying to make little yous in the world. You're trying to help them be the best them they can be. Although little Gabes would be adorable.
Kind of alluding to what I just said previously, I think empowering folks and giving them confidence to kind of steer their own ship, so to speak. And I always let them know, hey, you need to be part of the process, really, and you need to be the captain of the ship. So, you know, be at the table when you're working on your treatment plan, be in charge and direct the ship. Yeah, I think everyone at the table said that. You know, you're steering the ship. We aren't steering the ship. You're steering the ship. So, you know, let us know what your needs are and how we can work with you on getting those needs met. So I think it's essential.
If I'm hurting and I'm not able to express my needs, can you share with me some techniques that you may use as professionals to get individuals to open up?
Sometimes I might work with them together while they're in my office and kind of start the conversation maybe with the agency on the phone and kind of get the process started. But then I'll kind of ask them, do you feel comfortable enough, you know, speaking with the person that I'm on the phone with? And kind of maybe just those small steps and getting the initial conversation started might really go a long way as far as, hey, this person is trying to help me through this, but kind of shifting it or maybe transitioning it over to the person while we're having the conversation and letting them kind of take it forward. I've done that before with folks, and it just depends pretty much, I mean, on the comfort level, I think, of the person and really how much experience and how much involvement they've had in the past with maybe steering their own ship. Okay. So kind of just getting the process started, I think, is really, really important.
I personally, I agree. It's about trust. And you have to realize everyone moves at their own speed. And when you actually, like I said before, I work with kids and their families. And I don't want it to be like pulling teeth. It has to be a natural process. It has to be when people are ready to talk, they'll talk. And if they don't feel like they're ready to talk, there's other stuff we can talk about so that they know it's a safe place. And it's about being that safe environment, because a lot of times they don't have a safe environment. So I think about, you know, when you're dealing with hurt, it has to be at their own pace. It has to be when you're ready to talk sometimes, and then sometimes it's not about actually talking about the issue. It's just about realizing that there's other things that they can have their mind on other than that issue.
Right.
We use a very specific technique for trauma. If anybody's ever heard of it, EMDR, yeah, eye movement desensitization. It's hard to word it. Easy for me to say, right? Reprocessing, but it's an evidence-based practice to deal with very deep-rooted trauma. What we've discovered is our clients really can't engage in treatment fully, or it won't sink in until we get through that trauma that is so deep-rooted and so buried. We absolutely, though, don't force that technique. We wait until the clients are ready and they come to us to engage in that, because if you could imagine that deep-rooted, that trauma, when that starts to come to the surface, you really need a professional there to help them work through that and talk through that. And we've seen some amazing, amazing transformations using EMDR.
Great, thank you.
I would just, go ahead. I would just kind of echo what everyone's saying. I think just acknowledging sometimes that maybe people are not in a place to talk about what they've experienced, but that you're there. Gabe had said it beautifully about being consistent and showing people that you're there, you're dedicated to their healing process, and that you want to be a part of that is an important way to show people that you're committed to the process.
I've suggested to people before to keep like a mood journal or write down their story if they're unwilling to, you know, open up to you verbally. Sometimes it's easier to write it down or just write a little bit every day, and then when they're ready, they might be willing to share it with you, and then that can start the process.
Great, thank you. As you are all individuals who are, as Marion just said, dedicated to the healing process, what are your desired outcomes? What would you like to see happen in your line of work out in the community with the individuals you serve?
I'd like to see people feel more empowered after initially maybe coming to me to address an issue, maybe to feel more empowered the next time to maybe start the process themselves and be able to call me and say, hey, guess what?
Okay.
I've talked to my agency, I've talked to so-and-so, and addressed the issue on my own, and it's resolved. But getting that feedback, sometimes it's hard for me to get the feedback from folks after I've worked with them and the issue's resolved. I might not hear back from them for a while. But I always will leave them with, feel free to call me in the future to let me know how things are going. You know, let me know if you've had any other issues and how they've been addressed, or if you've been able to move them forward on your own. But I think success for me would be having folks feel confident and empowered enough to address concerns with the agencies independently in the future.
All right. Okay.
I just want everybody to be self-sufficient and happy. And that's going to look different for every person, I think. I mean, the things that make me happy probably don't make all of you happy, et cetera. So I stick to self-sufficient because a lot of the people that we see, you know, they're dependent on things that have to be provided for them. And what worries me about that is, you know, one, nobody likes to be dependent on others, adults in general. But two, what if those things go away? You know, these are the things that keep me up at night. I mean, some people are held together by Medicaid expansion because they're able to get the care that they need. Well, if Medicaid expansion goes away, these people aren't going to have health insurance. And you know, that's why I kind of lean on self-sufficiency, because if you're self-sufficient, you're not dependent on anybody, which I know is kind of I mean, everybody's dependent on somebody, but to tie that all back up, I'd like people to be in control of their own destiny and not be so reliant on things that may or may not be around tomorrow. Because I think that's our best shot at happiness. That's their best shot at happiness.
Thank
For me, it's helping clients find their gift. We all have a gift, but oftentimes people that come from a lot of hardships and a lot of hurt and trauma, they've buried those gifts and don't know what they are. Also to help them identify their strengths that they have, because life isn't easy for any of us at times. But my wish is once they leave our program that they have the strength and the confidence and recognize their gift, that they can effectively deal with anything that comes at them without going back into addiction or without going back on the streets to prostitute. To me, that's the biggest success, is having hope that tomorrow will be better than today, recognizing those strengths and recognizing those gifts.
That was way better than how I said it. I was like, way better. Like, what she said, just forget my answer. I was way better.
I would say for me in the CARE Coalition, the increased collaboration and reach, we know together we can do so much more than we can do individually. I love what you said about hope. I mean, that to me drives me. When you can provide hope to communities and individuals, that means everything. So that's really a powerful thing. And I think trauma coming out into the community, it's about sharing what trauma is and people recognizing the signs so they can then make different choices and empower themselves to just change the outcomes of their own lives. It's powerful.
I guess for me and C&D, it's education. I personally have been working on the South Side for 17 years now, and I've actually seen generation, or at least a generation. I want to, date myself, but it's about education because we usually start with our kids, and they're 5, and I have kids who now have kids, and it starts with, only. When I first started, only 25% of the parents we work with have had high school diplomas. Now the numbers, their kids, we have at least 75% of their kids have graduated. Most of our kids are on some type of public assistance. So we work with them when they got older on how to actually apply for a job, how to do public speaking, how to actually speak up for themselves. So we kind of, our success is really in education and what our kids are doing, or excuse me, these young adults are doing out in the community.
Great, thank you. We as a community need to help when healing hurt. Not all of us are in professions that require us to heal hurt. So what is it that we as an audience and those that are viewing us on television can do to help you perhaps better serve the populations that you serve?
Give us a whole bunch of money.
Okay.
I think keep the conversation going. We really, one of the things that I say at the end of CIT, quarter after quarter after quarter, is there's not a lot of resources for the training program, for the CIT training program, the police officer training program. There's not a lot of resources for net care and to stop the revolving door, et cetera. And the loudest advocates in the room are people living with mental illness and addiction and their families. So I would like, and I make this pitch every quarter, I would like to see the police officers get on board because our society respects police officers. They listen to police officers. So unfortunately, our society is very jaded. So when people living with mental illness, addiction, and trauma say, hey, we need more resources, people think, they're just saying that. But if we can get the rest of the community on board, people that have no stake in the game, people that feel that it's important just because it's important, society is more apt to listen to you than me. So that is what the community can do. They can get on board and they can help us promote our cause because they see value in it. And hopefully you do see value in it.
I've got just from two different perspectives. From a client perspective, I think that I would like to say to the community is not to be judgmental. We've talked a lot on this panel about the stigma and what people think an addict looks like, or a criminal looks like, or a person afflicted with mental health, or a woman who was pregnant as a teenager. We all have those biases, and to recognize those biases and that we all judge, unfortunately, but to take a step back and say, that's just a person. It's a person hurting, and it's a person just like me or somebody I know, or that could be me had I made a couple of different choices. I'd also like to say something from the perspective of the staff, the staff that serve clients on a day-to-day basis. And we don't talk enough about the secondary trauma And in order to serve clients the best that we can, our staff have to be as healthy as possible and have a balance in their life, because if they're not healthy, they can't help our clients. And as a community, I would like to do more for our staff, for our frontline staff, to help them process and deal with that secondary trauma of the stories and the everything that they hear every day, and how they put themselves out there just to help somebody in need. And I think it's a very noble profession that honestly doesn't get a lot or enough recognition.
Thank you, Linda.
I would say a better understanding of just trauma and mental illness is important. Just understanding what it is and how it impacts people is a very important thing to start with. The Adverse Childhood Experiences Study is a great one from the CDC. I think many people should be aware of that and just know the impact of trauma.
What was that? The
Adverse Childhood Experiences.
Okay. Donovan, you're good? Okay.
I was going to say that I think open minds and non-judgmental open minds are the most important thing for the community to have, and the willingness to listen and communicate, I think are all very important if we want to break through stigma. And if folks want to and are willing to be at the table with the discussions from the community.
Is that it? I can't tell if he's thinking or done.
I think we broke Phil.
I think it's just also important to remember that whoever and whatever they're afflicted with and whatever hurt, these are members of our community. These are members that go to our churches, that shop in the same stores that we do, or the checkout folks, or the salesperson that might sell us a car. And just to recognize the fact that we all bring different things to the table, and we all have our hurt, but they are part of us, and we have to wrap our arms around them and make them feel and understand they're valuable members of our community.
Thank you. Could you offer any ideas or ways in which people can begin to heal their hurt and understand hurt?
I would say, do not be ashamed that you're hurting. A lot of the folks we work with, one, it's not a contest sometimes. Just because you feel bad, well, if you feel bad, you should be able to feel bad. And even if you don't think it compares what other people are going through. A lot of times, I don't know, I guess that's the big thing, is you should be able to express any hurt that you have and not be ashamed. Because a lot of times, I know we talked about, in the African-American community, a lot of times we don't share. So yeah, I really think it's about sharing and understanding that your hurt is valid.
Okay, great answer.
I think having a support network is really important as individuals who might be experiencing hurt. Just thinking about who in your community or who in your family is someone you can talk to, and beginning to start those conversations, or just kind of reaching out for help when you need it.
Great.
Just reminding everyone, and really ourselves, that when we share a hurt, it's not necessarily showing a weakness. It's actually one of the most courageous things anybody can do, is to open up and be vulnerable and to say, I have this hurt and I need help.
We're a little bit ahead of schedule, so I'm going to ask at this point, before we go any further into questions, has there been anything that has been brought up that you guys would like to expand upon that we have not yet discussed?
I think resources are very important.
Okay.
And I know that's coming down the pike. I think you're going to do another.
Yes, our next series is on resources, but we can spend a little time talking about that if you'd
I
like.
brought a lot of resources with me, and I think just being aware of your resources, no matter what situation you're going through, but I think is very important. And, you know, I think somebody just mentioned a support network, you know, having a listening ear. Whoever that might be, not necessarily professional, not necessarily a a peer support person, but maybe a family member or whoever, significant other, sibling, whoever that might be. You know, it's different for different people, and trying to heal hurt is not a one-size-fits-all kind of process. So it's very different for everyone, and I think finding somebody that allows that difference and allows you to be you in expressing your hurt, I think is important to make that connection with.
I just kind of have a thought of just thinking about resilience as a whole, and that we all have a huge capacity to be resilient. It just sometimes takes some tools to be able to make that happen. But even though there's hurt, there's the other side of that. And I think just if we all can be ambassadors of healing hurt and helping people get to the other side of it, I think that's an important thing to remember.
Great, thank you. So we can be ambassadors, we can be service providers, we can be community members, we can work together. With this type of collaboration, can we actually heal hurt, or are services going to be around? We're going to need to continue to realign, rethink, and re-strategize.
I think you can heal hurt. I absolutely think there's
Great.
many people throughout, our world who have come through tremendously harmful and traumatic things and have come on the other side. So I think that there are lots of opportunities to heal hurt. And I think, as professionals, even, whatever it takes to heal the hurt can happen. I think we can do it, though.
Oh, it's positive. That's great.
I think you can heal hurt, but I also think a lot of times there's some hurt that you have to survive, and there's also some hurt that you have to actually build upon. Me being a former athlete, I know me personally, I use some of the trauma in my life to actually propel me, to do stuff I didn't think I could actually do. So you can actually build upon the hurt also, and at the same time deal with it. So yeah, it all depends what kind of hurt you're talking about. I mean, honestly, it's just, to me, it's never good if you hold it inside. There's no good outcome from that. But you have to figure out a way how, in your way, the best way for you to deal with it. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I think we were mentioning before something about secondary trauma for our providers and some of the folks that do the direct care. I mean, we're all human beings, and we're all going to experience hurt. And we're all going to probably need a shoulder to lean on to heal from our hurts. So I think the community needs to, it's a community process. It's not a provider process, it's not a client process, it's not it's a community process. And I think we all need to realize that we haven't walked in the other person's shoes. And we don't know what they've experienced, what trauma, what hurt they've experienced. And we all, I believe, get to the point where we do have hurt in our lives. So if we can reflect maybe back on some of the things that we've been through and the hurts and how we've gotten through them, I think can go a long way in trying to assist and be compassionate and in working with others that might be going through a hurtful experience.
I think we can definitely heal the hurt, and we've talked a lot about collaboration between agencies, and I think for those that are in that deepest pain, we have to have a network, a safety net. So none of us are turning anybody away who perhaps isn't a right fit or the right time. We're picking up the phone and we're calling another provider to say, hey, he or she is not quite a good fit here, but I think he'd be a good fit there, and picking up that phone, because I think we lose so much potential to help people heal that hurt when they're not appropriate, or the assessment doesn't come out the way to make them appropriate for the program, and then we just turn them away. And I just think there's so much potential and opportunity in service providers working together and providing that soft handoff instead of that hard handoff.
Okay. We're going to open up to questions, but before we do so, is there anything that you'd like to share with us in regards to hurting, any stories, I should say, any stories that you'd like to share with us in regards to individuals, families, community members that stick out for you, that have been a real positive outcome, that might help to, put a positive spin on things. Without breaching confidentiality, I might add.
I think my own story is pretty positive.
Oh, great.
I'm trying to condense it like real short. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder after I was committed to a psychiatric hospital, and that was pretty low point. I woke up in a psychiatric hospital, and it got worse from there. And it was a frightening experience. And when I was diagnosed, the first thing I thought is, okay, I've got to sell my house, liquidate all my assets, and move into some sort of asylum or group home. I thought I needed to quit my job, because that's the only understanding that I had of mental illness was, the straitjacket, violent. I believed TV. TV really let me down in that moment. But for the next 24 hours, I just really believed that my life was over, that I was, a ward of the state. And that was very, very lonely. I had no hope, because I didn't know anybody else with bipolar disorder that had done well. In fact, at the time, I had only known one other person who had bipolar disorder, and that was Kurt Cobain, the lead singer of Nirvana. And for the younger people in the room, that's a man who died by suicide. So at that time, I was like, okay, I know one rich guy with bipolar disorder who died. All right, so it's pretty bad for me, I think. And then all these years later, I made it to here. I mean, that's a psychiatric ward, and that now I get to sit here and educate people. That's a huge positive. It took a long time and it took a lot of work, but I never would have thought in that moment, in that psychiatric ward, that anybody would ever listen to anything that I had to say on the subject. So the fact that people do is one, really, really awesome. And two, it shows you how far you can come if you have the right resources, if you have the right support, if you have the right everything, and you work really, really hard. And I personally, not to sound unhumble, but I think that's amazing, and I think that's a great positive. No, thank you.
You never underestimate what kind of an impact you can have with other folks. Never underestimate the impact that you can have with other folks that you're working with. Because you don't know a lot of times how you are impacting them and the messages that they're getting from you and how that's going to affect them. And how it's also going to strengthen you as a professional. Because those kind of successes, when people move forward, when people are now paying it forward and doing things working with you, such as Gabe, and other folks, that's very powerful, and that keeps me going as a professional. When you work with folks and you see them move forward and you see them be successful and give back and pay it forward on their own. Gabe's a great example of somebody that's really, very successful and a good positive story, and is paying it forward in so many different ways. This is just one example, but he's out in the community all the time, paying it forward and sharing his story, and which is very courageous on his part. And I just thank people like Gabe that help keep me going. And so thank you.
For me, one of the biggest success stories was a woman who was with us, and she ended up coming to our program pregnant. And this was her third child, and it was the first child that was born non-drug addicted. And I'm sorry. And it was the first child she actually got to take home with her that wasn't in children's services. And that was, it's like, wow. And she didn't think she could do it. So it was her third child. She actually literally took home from the hospital and brought her to our apartment. And they're still living there now. And she's working on getting her other children back. But it was the very first baby born without being drug addicted.
I would just share a story. Prior to the CARE Coalition kind of formulating officially, we went, I mentioned earlier, we went on the hilltop after a triple homicide, and one young man had actually just moved from California to Ohio, and he told me it was to get away from violence. And lo and behold, it happened right across the street. And so for us, it was really powerful to hear that and to hear his story, him traveling to try to avoid it and it happening. So just hearing that and being there in that moment to offer him resources was really powerful for us. And it just helped him know that we cared about what he was experiencing and wanted to be a support system for him as a newcomer to Ohio.
I guess for me, it's the small victories. I had a mother who had, 6 kids in our program, and they weren't used to being in a organized program. And so every day, in order to, at CND, we believe there's no bad kids, and a lot of times we had to look into the little victories. But by the end of the year, the mother had came up to us and let us know that all the difference she saw in her kids since they've been in our program. They were able to be more mannered. They hadn't gotten suspended in months. They would get suspended at least twice a week. So sometimes it's that small victory. Sometimes you don't realize you're making that big a difference, but then when you see that whole picture, you realize how much of a difference you're making.
Great. Thank you all so much. Before we close, I'd like to open it up to the audience for questions. If anybody has any questions, I'm going to ask that we come to the microphone for filming purposes so that the television audience can hear your question as well. Does anybody have any questions? If you could just introduce yourself and state your question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susanna from the Compassionate Communication Center, and I'm also a trainer for the Center for Nonviolent Communication. Just in essence, nonviolent communication helps people first, when you ask like how to heal trauma, first learn how to be compassionate with themselves while they're learning nonviolent communication. Also to be empathic to each other, so while they're learning in groups, they learn how to be empathic. And maybe you know, but through science, they proved that through empathy, it can bring you back to yourself and heal trauma that's been there for years. Last year, we were given a grant to bring Palestinians and Israelis here to Columbus to learn and practice nonviolent communication to bring that back. This year, we've been offered a grant to offer nonviolent communication to underserved populations, people who haven't had the resources. So people come to our trainings all the time, and we've even worked with Amvis before. So I am offering a gift that this grantor through the Columbus Foundation has thought so highly of nonviolent communication that she'd like to find places where maybe a group of women, a group of youth, a group of peers that would like to come and practice nonviolent communication in a way that would first help them be more compassionate with themselves, but also in working with others to learn how to maybe listen more empathically and speak in a way that really creates collaboration. So I'd like to offer that, and I hope you'll take me up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I tell you, I first want to acknowledge Commissioner Poirier and the Commission for putting this on, and the Department of Neighborhoods, and also the Friends of the Community Relations Commission for putting this on, and most importantly, the panel. My name's Napoleon Bell, and I'm with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, and I hear your passion for your work, and that's good to hear and see, and also the success stories. You know, all too often we don't get to hear the success stories about people really overcoming their addictions or mental health issues. And so I think we need to hear more of that. And also you talk about the being able to hear a person's stories. You know, I challenge everyone, I challenge the people out here in the audience and in the viewing audience to take that time to go into the communities, to really hear a person's story, to get a better understanding of what they're going through, and so that you can make sure that proper services are there, and fill those gaps that you guys talked about. So speaking of the gaps, one of the things that you had said in regards to collaboration, that I guess all too often we work in some silos. So, and you talked about the need. So I guess I challenge maybe someone on the panel, who can take the lead on that, to pull that together, to fill those gaps, to maybe have a collaborative meeting of all the agencies to do that. And I think that would help better understand how do we fill those gaps. And one of the gaps also that I want to question you, well, it's one of the questions, but also when we talk about mental health and also addiction issues, but what about the young people that are hurting in communities that wake up to the gunfire every morning or every evening, and the PTSD that they're dealing with? How do we, is there those services to really help them through that? Because I don't want to forget about the people in those communities are hurting also. And it might not necessarily be addiction issues, but just a matter of the environment that they're dealing in, working in. And so one of the things that I want to let you know from the Sheriff's Office in regards to the CIT training, many deputies are CIT trained, both in the corrections facilities and also on the street. And the Sheriff Dallas Baldwin, his focus is on community engagement and along with working with those who have mental health issues, in which he's established a community response bureau. And what part of that, we're starting a new group called the Community Diversion and Intervention Teams. So if a deputy comes upon someone with mental health issues, then that deputy is first of all CIT trained, but then we also send somebody out from this particular unit to address that issue, because the sheriff feels as though incarceration is not the issue for this person, but getting to the resources that person needs. So that is a focus of Sheriff Dallas Baldwin, so I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. Lastly but not least, service to Franklin County. I understand some things are here within the city, but I want to make sure that also, in asking the questions, do your resources, or do they service Franklin County? Sorry, that's several questions, but just something that I would like to ask. And again, I appreciate what you all do, because it does make a positive impact on our residents of Franklin County. Thank you.
I can take on one about the coalition that we've already built. The CARE Coalition is already convening, and I would welcome anybody to be a part of that. It meets the fourth Thursday of every month, but we are trying to address trauma, and we look at trauma in a lot of different ways, from community violence to opiate addiction to just a variety of different things. So we are trying to convene various partners around trauma. So that would be my answer to the community violence.
I know for us, we have several programs that we do. I do prevention, alcohol, drug prevention, and violence prevention. And in schools, we have a 9-week, twice a week, Younger Ambassadors for Peace, and many of the neighborhoods that you're talking about. And so during the Younger Ambassadors for Peace, we actually teach the kids strategies to how to deal with violence, how to deal with bullying, how to recognize the signs of bullies, whether you're a bully, whether you're being bullied. It's a lot of different things. We also, in our focus program, which meets as a high school program, we bring in speakers from different areas, so we try to collaborate that way. And our summer day camp this year, we actually had Sergeant Lolita Snow from the Columbus Department of Police come. She came 4 times over the summer to lessen the stigma of the police to our youth. So she brought the police car, she brought the deputy, sheriff department, she brought the deputy. She actually danced at one of our events. So we try to basically to do stuff, collaborate as much as possible.
And we have another question in the wings. Yeah, sorry, and we'll get to you next. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kay Wilson. I'm executive director of a nonprofit called LeaderSpark, where we work with young people. Thank you to the panelists for your insight, and also thank you to the moderator in City of Columbus. My question, I have 2 questions. One, to Mr. Bell's point, working in neighborhoods and working specifically with young people. I know I was adopted by a white family, so I didn't know I was black until somebody told me I wasn't white. And I was also addicted to heroin when I was born, so I was taken from my mother, but I didn't know I was an addict until somebody told me my mother's story, and then I understood. So when we deal with a lot of young people, and we go into the schools, and I'm part of another coalition that deals with children affected by violence and trauma, and we go to the hospitals or we go to the houses, and sometimes when you ask the kids, when you want to show support and you have that trust, they don't always know they're in a traumatic situation because they're used to the gunfire or they're used to the abuse, or so it's almost a normalcy to them. So talking to them about trauma, they often feel like this is every day to me. And sometimes it's not until we give them access. A lot of the kids don't know they're poor until we take them to the parade of homes and they see, oh, my neighborhood's not like that. Why does this neighborhood not have a liquor store on every corner? And so my question is, how do your organizations provide access, if you do, so people can see the difference in whether it's lifestyle or behavior or trauma? And then the second question, as somebody who's also in there serving with you, how do you continue to work on yourself so you can be the best you to help those that have trauma?
Go ahead.
I could understand a lot of points you made. I grew up in a neighborhood where I was just telling a story the other day. To me, it's funny. To other people, it wasn't. About the first time I saw somebody get shot when I was 5, and just telling that whole story about living in Woodland Meadows and how about what happened. And to me, it was a normal day. It was just more exciting. But for us, as now we're grown, we do stuff like we do a college tour, and we do exposure field trips. So like we take 35 youth, we've done it for 27 years, on a week-long college tour, and they get to experience, last year we went to, I'm trying to remember, we went to Tennessee, Atlanta, and Alabama. So we went to 9 schools in those 6 days with kids who were primarily from East High School and from Independence and stuff like that, where they got a chance to actually experience. We stayed at Embassy Suites hotels, so they got to experience stuff outside their neighborhood. We go do a lot of stuff, even with our after-school programming. We have it in our south side, we work with 90% Appalachian. On the west side, we work with on a hilltop. And on the east side, we work with a lot of our kids who come from Trevitt and Bolivar Arms. The thing is about taking them outside their environment so they can experience new things. I know you can't, with me, when I think about when I grew up, I didn't think about being bad. I thought it was just what I went through. And honestly, I look back to good old days. The thing is I know that I have better days ahead of me. So it's that we teach them how, not just to cope, because no one wants to think about their environment. My mom didn't tell me I was poor. I didn't feel the poor, even though it was all around me. It's about making sure they have something they can strive for. That's for me.
We have a summer camp program called the Summer Quest, where we serve the children of the clients that are in our program, which is about 25 to 30 kids. And we found that we use yoga therapy and we use art therapy to help them just to start to understand their emotions. And it's amazing when you see them going through yoga therapy. Some of these kids don't understand what it's like to just be quiet with themselves and to go through that relaxation. So we do that, but on the flip side, we also do some really fun activities, some activities and exposure they might not get to experience, going to COSI, going to the zoo. We took them to Fort Hays High School, if anybody's familiar with that. It's a career tech program. So, and some of the children didn't know, wow, there was a school that I could learn to be, that I could get into construction or learn how to fix cars. So we also try to do that type of exposure too, just to get these kids out in the community in an organized fashion. And as you indicated, just expose them to things that they wouldn't otherwise see, and to also let them see that what their experience isn't normal, and it isn't okay. And there is something else besides that.
At the Peer Center, we do have field trips. I mean, remember, we're adults. We serve only adults. You have to be over 18 to get in. And we do offer things like field trips to the zoo or to movies or to the Ohio State Fair to, like you said, to your point, allow people to see that there's more out there. But even more importantly than that, we really have a firm belief in modeling the way. At the Peer Center, we have a code of conduct, and everybody has to follow it. It doesn't matter who you are. From the guests who come in, to the staff who work there, to the executive director, to all of the people that utilize the services, we really try to create, this stable, drama-free environment. And we have nice things, and we value those things, and we keep it clean. And many people have expressed, this isn't their home life. Their home life has, a lot of arguing or problems or uncertainty or, it's not nice, things are broken, things don't work, and this is not what we want at the Peer Center. So we want to show people that they can have fun, they can enjoy life, they can lead a life that is non-dramatic, that is stable, where people keep their promises, and hopefully that will, they'll start to say, you know what, when I'm at the Peer Center all day, people keep their promises, it's stable, it's clean, and then when I go home, there's nothing but arguing or problems. So hopefully they will build that into their personal lives because we modeled the way while they were here. So that's that, and we take them to the fair. But definitely modeling the way is very, very important. It can be done because we do it. So that gives people a lot of faith that it can be done. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. We're going to, if we could keep the response somewhat short, and then we have a comment, and it is time for us to close out. All right?
Hello. My name is Kenneth Gold, and I'm Executive Director for Leaders of Today and Tomorrow. And my question was for the Hadden Board. Just in reference to you talked about resources, and I was wondering how have Hadden Board helped to decrease the waiting list for people to get the resources, because I hear that we talk about resources, but because everybody is in need of services, what things are you guys putting in place to help agencies that have these long waiting lists of people who need services to actually get the services?
Well, we're trying to develop new programming out there through our, I think you heard me discuss system investments in the past. We're trying to invest monies into the system of care that typically might not be geared towards one of our official agencies, but through a different type of programming that might be specifically needed out in the community, or maybe these wait lists might kind of give us a heads up, oh, you know what, this might be something good to invest our money in. So we put out requests for proposals out in the community, and we submit those to the community, and then we have folks give us grant proposals back to kind of let us know how are they going to address that issue. What is their program going to look like? And then we award the monies. We have folks sitting at the table, consumer family members, other people from the board, people from the community, to address that need and to review those proposals. And then we score those proposals, and then we submit the money for whoever's going to get that award for that type of program. I know it's not a perfect world, and let's be realistic. There are wait lists out there, and there are services that are needed, but hopefully that's one way that we're trying to address some of those needs out there in a different kind of way.
I would like to thank everybody for coming to our Lunch and Learn. We're going to close it out with a comment. I want to remind everybody that our next Lunch and Learn is September 14th. It is on resources. I want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart. I was very excited about today, and it lived up to my expectations. So thank you all so much for coming.